Good evening and welcome everyone. I'm Fran Smith from Beam. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for the digital premiere of The London Mothers, the last creative commission for the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site Great Place Scheme Creative Programme, which is supported by Arts Council England and the National Lottery Heritage Fund. Thanks also if you're joining us to view the recording of this event. We're really excited to share the film of The London Mothers for the first time, and I'm delighted to introduce our special guests. Adrian Farmer from the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site, and Heidi Luker, the artist who has created The London Mothers. Thank you all for joining us. Now, before we get started, I'd like to hand over to Adrian to say a few words about Willersley Castle, the setting for The London Mothers, which sits within the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site.
Thanks, Fran. Just for some context, Willersley Castle is part of the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site and was built by Richard Arkwright, although he died before it was completed. His son and later descendants lived there until the death of Frederick Arkwright in 1923, after which the Methodist Guild bought the castle and converted it into a hotel. With the outbreak of the Second World War, it was requisitioned for use as a maternity hospital, which we'll hear about shortly. And once the war was over, it became a hotel once more until the Guild closed it down last year. It has since been sold, and I'll say a little bit more about Willersley after we've seen the film. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Adrian. Before we watch the film, I'll just run through the format for this live stream. We'll be playing the film of The London Mothers now, which lasts approximately 20 minutes. Please add your messages or questions in the comments section at any time, and don't forget that you'll need to be logged into YouTube in order to be able to do that. Following the screening, we'll be hearing from Heidi about the making of the play and from Adrian with a bit more information about the heritage context for this work. We'll then move on to take any questions, and we envisage the whole event's going to take approximately 1 hour. As this is a live stream, the visual and sound quality may vary depending on your internet connection. So if you want to enjoy the recording of the film in full quality and with full subtitles, it will be available on the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site YouTube channel following the event, and we'll send out the link to you for that. So now I'm delighted to present this digital premiere of The London Mothers.
It's not far, then you'll both be safe. Keep together now, ladies. Quick march and mind the edge of the path. Hold on tight to them babies, it's a bit slippery from the rain. We don't want you lot tipping over. We'll get inside, put the kettle on, and have a nice cup of tea.
Oh, I forgot my knitting! Just step round it, that's it. And keep going, ladies, straight ahead, then the entrance is to our left. Like now you go down the steps. Well done, Gladys. I know this is hard for you. You're doing so well, we're nearly there. You can lean on me, but let's move these feet. You can do it, don't think about it, just please walk. Oh, I can't! It's too much! You need to get into the hospital. Almost there, just a few more steps. Quickly.
Well, I hope there are plenty of stops on the way. Don't want to go wetting me flipping knickers. How are we going to fit all our luggage in? Do they expect us to sit on them? Blimey, what have you packed, Doreen? The kitchen sink. You never know is what I'm saying. What if I don't have running water? It could be worse than home. Me dad looked half flapping the map. It's miles from London. Up in the north. May as well be in the Outer Hebrides. Oh, come on, Doreen. Hurry up and stop all this chat. You sit with me, love. Only if I can sit in the aisle so I can stretch my legs. This is going to kill our backs. Now, Mary, do pack enough food. I'm starving already. You enjoying your dripping?
Tired, Doreen, you're a pal.
I think I've lost my appetite for all this bump in the road.
Now to do with what's on the a la carte menu.
Can't say I'll be sorry not to be sleeping in those aero shelters. I spent so many nights in them, with bombings, snoring and stink. Open the bus bombs would keep going. Didn't ever think they'd drop on someone's house or factory. Oh, I do hope our Harry will be alright on his own after his shift. I hate to think about him not hearing the sirens. There's so little time, you know, before you hear them planes, and by then it's too late. It's not easy finding your way in the dark when you're half asleep. And the poor love always forgets his pillow.
I keep thinking about Gladys. It's not the same without her. We've been like family in that factory since she arrived from up north. Why do you think she couldn't come with us?
Well, she's a bit of a homebird, and some people are just afraid of the unknown. She don't want to upset the apple cart more than it has been. It's bad enough she has to stay with her aunt for now.
She'll be alright in the mother's hospital though.
They've built a shelter, and I hear it's all cosy with lots of singing. Babies are put up on a shelf in a row above the mums, all snuggled up together, snoring like little piglets wrapped in blankets. How they tell them apart, I don't know.
Aye, Doreen. Imagine pushing it out in front of all them people in that shelter.
Darling Harry, I miss you so much. I do hope you're keeping safe and remembering to wash your socks. The family I'm staying with in Wordsworth are lovely. And for the first time in my life, I've got a bedroom and a bed all to myself. You wouldn't believe the view from our window. Fields, the valleys, trees. And I can see cheeky little lambs running in the fields, jumping and playing together. We even have hens for their fresh eggs. Mary's staying with a large family in the centre of Wordsworth, where the roads are covered in quarry muck and dust. She's as chirpy as ever, and she's never stopped talking about the letters she's getting from her young man, Dave. She's so smitten, which is just as well. Makes me glad we had time to tie them up before people noticed. We caught the bus to Willersley Castle yesterday for my first check-up, with us London women. That's what the locals call us here. The bus ride down was another story. At least it's not as bad as Green Hills. That's the Big Dipper.
Oh, I can't look!
When we arrived, the matron Miss Trove was there to keep an eye on us. We could go up to 3 clinic days a week. Miss Trove's a real sweetheart. Some of us have never left London, and it's really homely-like, with lots of us around and chatting. Oh, and our doctor's a woman. How good is that? Makes it easy for us talking about our bits and bobs. Falling on our feet, aren't we, Mary? Fit for a king.
Or queen. Come on, Doreen, we don't want to be late. Hey up, me duck, you're right. I mean, what are you meant to say to that? No, mate, I'm I'm clearly up the duff and can barely make it up and down the old apples and pears.
What's it like staying with them?
Pleasant enough, but they're a little on edge. You see, the last girl staying forgot to hand in her bulletin notice at the Willersley to say she'd left, and Mrs. Doxy's been summoned for the cash and allowance. They get 1 guinea a week for each of us.
Well, I don't feel so guilty now for taking one of their bedrooms.
That's not the worst of it. They asked why I wasn't wearing a ring. It was worse than when I told me mum and dad, and that was summit. Thought I got away from all that.
Do you ever wish otherwise?
No, never. He'll be back. He wouldn't have asked me to marry him otherwise. Tell you what though, I'm loving the laughter and company of us London girls.
Even the locals are beginning to warm to us.
I know it sounds daft, but I love walking just for the sake of it, even with my big bump. Look, I've even borrowed some wellies. Bet you never thought you'd see me in a pair of them. I mean, the furthest I walked to before was to the bus stop in the West End or a stroll in Hackney Marshes.
Me too.
Dave and I always talked about moving out the East End, getting a little house with a garden and flowers.
Sounds lovely. I've been thinking I could wait up here until the war's over. Maybe Harry could transfer to Derby.
It's a little different for me.
Dragged out of bed. The whole of Wordsworth must have been woken by your flipping screaming.
Now I know why it's called the agony wagon. Doreen, don't leave me!
We'll do this together.
Oh, Doreen, promise me you'll get a telegram sent to his unit. I haven't heard from him since I got here.
Oh, Mary.
I'm scared. Oh no! You never said anything about them stairs!
Just hop in, dear. It'll be so quick. You'll be up there in no time at all.
I no way I'm getting in that bloody contraption! Oh, please! I can't do it! I'm scared of heights! I'd rather crawl on my knees if I have to! Apart from the mice and the leaking roof, it's a proper holiday. Us two sunbathing on deck chairs, strolling to the Greyhound Hotel for tea and scones and a music recital this evening. Proper bargain if you ask me.
Definitely. Getting me figure back and all. I can't believe I went into labour almost right after you'd given birth. I didn't mean to upstage you. Your little Thomas is a handsome chap, the spitting image of Dave.
Oh, tar Doreen. He's got his eyes, doesn't he?
Oh, did I tell you? Harry wants to come up here next week to visit. He's so excited to meet James and Thomas. Mary, over there. It may be me hormones and the bright sunshine blinding me eyes, but that looks awfully like our Gladys walking towards us.
My goodness, you're right. It's her.
Gladys!
Cooey!
I can't believe you're here! Look at you!
We've been worried sick. What with all the bombings we've heard about?
I've missed you girls. Couldn't keep away, so I hopped on the train. I had to go to the mother's hospital early, like, for a bit of bed rest. The pain started on the way to the shelter, and the porter and the poor midwife had to drag me back to the delivery ward.
Gosh, you must have been petrified.
I could feel the explosions nearby. I don't know what I was dreading more, giving birth or being buried alive. I had no idea what was going to happen. And Angela was delivered by the hospital's head, no less. I had her out in the flesh and me back on my feet in no time at all.
Angela.
My baby. I named her Angela. Like an angel. She's going to be a beautiful little girl.
Oh no. Gladys. How could... Did you let her go?
Gasping for a cup of tea. What's the service like here? Mary?
I was in the right state after I had Thomas. It wasn't meant to be this way, but I wanted to keep believing. I couldn't sleep or feed him properly, so Miss Trove took me aside. She was lovely. She telephoned his face.
What does it say?
Stay. His plane went down. He's missing. His family don't know about me. It all happened so quickly. He thought we had all the time in the world. It seems so peaceful here. I almost forget we have to leave soon.
Are you doing the right thing for Thomas? Waiting for news. What if his dad's not somewhere in France? You can't bring up a baby on your own. Not without an allowance or family behind you. And who's going to want someone else's kid?
I can't just move on like you. He sounded so happy in his last letter about us having a baby together. He couldn't wait to get back and have us a small, simple wedding. Thomas is a part of both of us.
So are you staying up here?
For now. Until I decide what to do. But I'm not going back to be looked down on by everyone. Small-minded, a lot of them.
Well, maybe you're stronger than me, but I understand my family. They have a reputation to maintain, and so do I.
So you'll forget this ever happened. Never wonder who your baby ended up with, or think about her first birthday.
Stop it! Gladys already knew the father, so it's different.
Don't you dare say that.
No, I meant that. I mean you weren't in love like we was. It was just...
Yeah, just a once-off after a dance. My first time. I didn't know you could get pregnant then. I didn't know anything.
Did you tell him about being in the family way?
No. Never saw him again. But if I'm honest, I want to get on with my life. Meet someone special, get married, you know. But she'll always be with me. In here. Truth is, I envy you, Mary. I always thought you were a good time girl, just out for laughing things, you know? I really hope your young man is safe and comes back. I'm sorry.
Mary, have you thought about where you'll stay?
Do you know that big house? Masson House, overlooking Masson Mill. The family there each have a flat, and I can share for a while with Sue, you know, one of the girls down the clinics.
And Mum's happy to look after Thomas during the day so I can find work. I expect most people will think he's hers, or I can always pretend to be a widow.
How do you feel about going home on your own?
Worried sick, if I'm honest. I'm not the girl I was 9 months ago and never will be. But this is the way it has to be. And I'll make damn sure if I ever have another baby girl, I'll tell her to think twice when she's older. Do you two realise your babies will have Willersley Castle as their birthplace on their birth certificate? Imagine them going for a job down our local factories. Be a bit of a come down, wouldn't it?
Well, I hope they don't expect to be treated like royalty. You know, have palaces built for them.
Wouldst thou care for a Phoebe, Prince Thomas? Your every whim is mine to fulfil.
We bow down before thee and obey your every command.
Well, I guess I'll see you London girls when the war's over.
So I hope that everybody enjoyed the play. Now to tell us a bit more about the background to the making of the London Mothers, I'm delighted to introduce artist Heidi Luker to say a few words.
Hello. Well, I'm glad you're all here, and before I forget, I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone that helped and supported me in this. So when I started out, I had no idea I knew that the pandemic would play a big part in the play, and it certainly presented some challenges. But like the women in this story, we remained calm and carried on. When I was looking for an angle or an approach to the project, I came across an old article in the Matlock Mercury and learnt that there were reunions held in the castle every year and had been since 2010 for people born in the castle during the Second World War. It meant that their place of birth would be Willersley Castle, and they became known as the princes and princesses of Willersley. So this is just a couple of days before the first lockdown came into force, and I realised research would have to be carried out remotely. But what I didn't realise was that most archives, libraries and the Derbyshire Record Office would be closed. So I had to resort to the internet as my main source of information. But really, it was a black and white photograph of a group of pregnant women standing in front of a bus and a pile of suitcases and a sign against the bus saying "off to Willersley," that really sparked my interest and made me curious about the different stories of each woman. I discovered that the women in the photograph were travelling from Derbyshire to from the Salvation Army's Mothers Hospital in North East London, where the maternity wing had been bombed in 1940. Their midwife training unit and most of their maternity unit was evacuated to Willersley Castle. And amazingly, it took one phone call to Derbyshire County Council to organise. In terms of researching, I found that the national newspaper archives were available online, and I came across a lot of interesting stories about the castle, and it was the information from them that gave me a really strong picture of what it would be like on a day-to-day basis in the castle. And also the responses from social media call-outs for people born at Willersley. So we put call-outs on Facebook, Twitter, and even London Radio. And I conducted interviews by phone with people. And it's some of the responses that are quite amusing that gave me a starting point for the writing of the script. And I realised that more than one voice was needed. I had thought that at the beginning, I could maybe have one actor reading from the interviews and have images in the background, but it rapidly snowballed into a short play. And it was my interview with the lovely midwife featured at the end of the video, Kathleen Bateman from Manchester, who trained at both the Mothers and Willersley Castle. And it was her insights into how people felt during the war and didn't know if they were going to survive to the next day, and her compassion for young unmarried mothers, which the Mothers Hospital had been set up to cater for. They were, in fact, the first hospital and refuge for unmarried mothers in the UK. And that inspired the direction of the story. She was very open about how ignorant young women were about sex and birth, and she just wanted to help them. And coincidentally, it was also 2020. It was also International Year of the Nurse and Midwife. So the performance was meant to have been staged in the castle, but it went into closure. Then it was going to be staged outside at Crumford Mill, and they had to cancel all their outside events. But I did have the Derby University technical students on board to help at Crumford, and their course leader Kit Lane stepped in and booked a filming of the live performance at Derby Theatre Studio, which is where this is filmed. And it also provided really valuable work experience for the students who hadn't worked on anything since March. So, but what this meant was that I had 1 month to cast, find rehearsal studio near the uni and rehearse the play, so no pressure there. The cast were brilliant, and they really pulled together, and I really enjoyed it, and I loved how they all bonded as well. And I'd also like to say I was really impressed with the stage crew. So it's been an adventure and a privilege and a pleasure to have met so many interesting people and shared their stories. The play may not reflect all those stories, but I think it hopefully gives you a feel for some of the mothers in the castle in the Second World War. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. It's so interesting to hear sort of all the insights into how the work came about. I know it's been a long journey to get to this point, so thank you for that. I'd now like to bring in Adrian Farmer. He's going to talk a little bit more about Willersley Castle and the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site and its significance. Thank you.
Thanks, Fran. So Richard Arkwright established a watermill at Cromford for the mass production of cotton from 1771. The modern factory system was born. He purchased the Willersley farm estate 11 years later, seeking to create a country seat befitting his elevated status. He didn't want to just replace the farm. It's as if he just walked up the hill until he came to a spot, saw the views and decided, it's going here. So a terrace was created to provide space to build. Then much of the work on creating the castle was carried out in 1788. But there was a fire in 1791, it meant the building wasn't ready to be occupied before he died the following year. So Arkwright never lived in it. His son, also Richard, had the building work completed and then moved in, and it remained in use by the family for over 130 years. During the First World War, the family stayed put, but most of Willersley Castle was used as a Red Cross auxiliary hospital, which I found quite interesting. I only found that out recently. And after the death of Frederick Charles Arkwright in 1923, it was eventually auctioned off to help pay off the death taxes. It was purchased by a Methodist organisation for use as a temperance hotel from 1928. So the Methodist Guild's holiday home, as they called it, was proved to be very popular, with large groups coming to stay and enjoyed the Derbyshire countryside. When war broke out, the medical use for the castle was found again, as we've seen, and the Troy Laundry, who operated in the yard at Arkwright's Cromford Mill, reckoned they had washed enough nappies for 6,000 babies between 1940 and 1946. And then it was a hotel again. It was run by what became the Christian Guild, and in its final years, it finally allowed some alcohol to be drunk, which was wine at the dinner table. So we were sorry to see it close last year, but we're told it has been sold now, and we're hoping that before long, Willersley Castle will be back in business as a hotel again and a valuable part of our World Heritage Site. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. So I'd now like to sort of go to a few of the comments and questions that we've got coming through. There's a lovely message here from Brian Rope, who's watching from Canberra in Australia. So hi Brian. So he says, that was great, and it was a special surprise to see the photo of myself being held up by mum and dad come up near the end of the film. You aware of that one, Heidi?
Yeah.
That one.
In Australia.
Yeah. So Willersley babies are spread far and wide. Is that something you found?
They are. So we've got quite. I think there's a baby in New Jersey in the States. So hopefully, Elizabeth, hello to you and your family and friends. Vancouver. Yeah, I think their families ended up all over, and not just down in East London.
Yeah. Okay. A question here from Kate Watson. How did the performers react to the stories? They really brought them to life. So how did your actors kind of respond to this?
I think I asked them when I auditioned them what did they like about, or how do they feel about it, and they just said they love the fact it was a script for all women. And Charlotte, who played Mary, I think she just related to it and she felt quite strongly that she wanted that part as well. And I think they found it quite easy to put themselves into their shoes and to imagine what it would be like. Yeah, I think they did it well. the hardest part, I think, in a studio was trying to rehearse with a 2-meter distance. So many of the actions were very unnatural, especially dealing with a woman in labour and not being able to touch her or to have anyone there to, we couldn't have a hospital porter. So we had to adapt the script to it. And like in a dance scene, we couldn't have them dancing together, which apparently they did quite often in Willersley. So I came up with the concept of it's really just an excuse to have a dance routine at halfway through, because I think every play should have one.
Absolutely. So a question, Heidi, what was the favourite part of working on the project?
I think it was putting together the characters. There was so much information which I was able to put into the document for the website, so it didn't kind of go to waste. But it was actually deciding what part were the characters playing and trying to give an equal voice to them all. So yeah, the characterization, and also putting together the pictures, because I found the original postcards and that were sold in the castle when it was a retreat, and merging it with a landscape. And I love the landscape by John Gage, and that would have been, I think, my second choice for a subject matter.
Great, thank you. So a question from Jane Wells. Are there any plans for a live performance? So, well, depends what happens, doesn't it, really?
I think the cast would love to. I'm not sure the students would be available because they've all graduated. But if we could get another crew together, I would love to do it. I think it deserves to be seen in real life. I think it was designed to be immersive. So yeah, it'd be lovely.
Yeah, and as we touched on as well, originally the idea of the piece was to bring it together at Willersley Castle itself, which obviously was another thing which changed, which we weren't able to do. As Adrian mentioned, if something happens there, maybe that's a possibility. We'll have to see what happens. But yeah. A few other comments. Penelope Willis, really wonderful to see this story brought to life. Congratulations to all involved. Kathleen, Penelope goes on to say, Kathleen Bateman is my aunt and she'll be watching the recording of the play. And you're asking whether the commentary will also be shared, which it will. So yeah. And Kit from, thanks Kit from University of Derby. We're ready to go. So great, thanks Kit. Thanks for all you've done. So yeah, I don't know, there aren't any other questions coming through at the moment. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to say, Heidi or Adrian, about the making of the play, or any of the things you particularly kind of enjoyed about the process.
I think just to really say it was an exceptional time. I just think Heidi has done brilliantly in making sure it still came together and that we've still been able to enjoy it, because Willersley Castle has never been in this position before where it's closed up, and we never foresaw that when this idea came together, that the hotel had been open since 1928. We've fully expected it to carry on. We've heard that there are new owners, but we haven't been able to make contact or know who those owners are. So I suspect it's going to be a little while yet before we really see Willersley back in operation. But it would be lovely to talk to them and see how they'd like to engage in understanding this part of their history, and perhaps, yeah, if they were up for some kind of either a screening or a live performance, it would be fantastic really to do it in the surroundings that are absolutely a key part of the play. So let's hope that is something that we can achieve. It may take a little while, but we'll certainly monitoring the situation in the World Heritage Site. Willersley is a big part of the World Heritage Site. You know, it was that very grand home that Richard Arkwright created. So it'll just be nice to get back in there. You know, we used to take people in there, and they were very open to us bringing groups in and just showing them around. It's a shame that I mean, we're not actually showing groups around at the moment and anywhere. But when we start out again, it'll be sad if we can't engage in Willersley like we used to. So fingers crossed.
I would really. It'd be great if the Willersley babies could keep in contact still, and they could continue to have reunions. I think there's a really lovely connection between them all, and that maybe if they can't meet up there, maybe they could set up a Facebook group and connect that way.
Yeah, especially as we've seen, everyone's spread so far and wide. So yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah,
and I'd also, before I forget again, say thank you to Margaret for the letters from her mother, who, although it wasn't, I received them after I'd finished the script. It was lovely to read them and to hear the voice of my mother from that time.
Yeah, that sort of first-hand experience, I guess, that sort of consolidated some of the stuff that you'd written into the play itself. Okay, there's just one more question here, asking whether you could sort of say a bit more about the Mothers' Hospital and about how, I suppose, your research into that and what that was like.
That was, yes, the Salvation Army set up the original Mothers' Hospital. It's called Ivy House, and that was, I think, as I said before, for unmarried women in northeast London who were just left destitute most of the time. So they set up the first maternity unit and refuge for them. And it grew. In the First World War, a lot of soldiers weren't able to send money back to their families, and the Salvation Army opened it up to families, and it kind of grew from there. And they ended up building the Mothers' Hospital in Clapton. And one, I think, really interesting part, and I think part of the legacy that was left in the Derwent Valley, is that their chief surgeon and obstetrician, Margaret Basden, she was really interested in research and innovation, and she introduced the idea of women being mobile after birth, so that on a practical level they could walk down to the air raid shelters, and but she also found that it improved their mental health, it improved their recovery, and so she has international recognition for that. And I would imagine that the training school that moved up here would have carried that on until at least the middle of the war. And the outcome of that was that in 1946, when the maternity unit was about to close, Derbyshire County Council had planned to have a big maternity unit in Derby and one in Chesterfield. But the local women were in an uproar about it, and they petitioned the council and said that they actually wanted more small units. Because the unit there was so homely and cosy, and they're encouraged to sit around and chat, and they got it. So that's why we have Darley-Dale, and we did have Waltham House. And although they're all closed, they were an offshoot of the unit at Willersley Castle.
Thanks, Heidi. It's really useful, to hear that kind of background and what it led to afterwards as well. Okay, well, just leaves me to say thank you very much to Adrian and Heidi, and thank you all for joining us on this live stream at home this evening. Really hope you've enjoyed the event. I'd like to say a big thank you to Heidi for all the work that she's put into creating the London Mothers over many months against the backdrop of the pandemic and many twists and turns. To the University of Derby Performing Arts Department, especially the actors Charlotte Jolliffe, Mackenzie Barwick and Abby Gaines, to lecturer Kit Lane, to the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site team, and to all the mothers, the Willersley babies, their families and midwives who helped inspire this play. And of course to our funders, Arts Council England and National Lottery Heritage Fund. We'd love to hear your feedback, which you can give through a short online form that should be popping into your inbox shortly. We'll email out to you directly, along with a link to more information that's online about Heidi's project and the background to this work, which is on the Derwent Valley Mills World Heritage Site website. So thank you again and see you next time. Thank you.